Hi everyone. Today's Why series, we talk about creation. And when I laugh, people might think, oh, he's laughing because he's not confident enough about it. Well, as much as scientists or people believe in evolution, believe, or how much they're confident, which is not scientific at all, and which I'm going to talk about. Well, the laugh is not about confidence. It's about this craziness that we are dealing with, this creation versus evolution, as if evolution is scientific and creation is not. So I'm going to challenge you with few ideas. I'm not saying you should change over right now, but it's a mind-boggling thing, just to let it go. So number one, scientists and evolutionism claims that evolution happens in millions of years, and creation cannot be happen. And the basis of this evolution, is talk about, single cell organism, actually not even organism, which is non-life becoming life. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen, cement or this metal pole, becoming a bird? If you say in millions of years it's going to be like that, you're crazy. Second, well, not second, but when you think about non-life becoming life, and non-life becoming one-cell organism, we have witnessed there's one-cell organism, but we have not observed any 2-cell, any 3-cell, any 4-cell, any multiplied cell organism in evidence, and as a historical fact, or we do not see it actually that it exists. We don't see it. It's just not there. And then scientists say, it probably did, we just don't have the evidence. More likely, scientifically approaching, more likely, no, it didn't happen. That evolution taking millions of years, it didn't happen. It is a theory. It's a popular theory now, and a lot of people believe certain events or variations or mutations is evidence, strong evidence of this. About variations or mutations as an evidence of revolution, it just does not collide. It's just a totally different thing. Well, the second, I want to challenge you with this Big Bang theory. So non-life becoming life, that is mind-boggling beyond non-scientific approach. Okay, and if you say Big Bang theory is right, then we have a serious problem. We have this amazing world and universe now, and it's expanded from nothing. That's what you're saying. That's what evolutionists or scientists claims that it happened. Well, some part of it is that evidence of Big Bang might be the evidence of creation. Because unless there's this being, that self-existence being, which is called God, and God calls himself, I am who I am. I exist without anybody.
과습 방지턱이 있습니다.
So God is this, self-sufficient being, and all the energy came from him. Other than that explanation, Big Bang cannot be explained. Because, there matters, on this earth, there's so many matters, so many different type of elements, that if you say that came from nothing, that is just crazy. I'm not being scientific. I'm not, I'm very emotional about it, and, when I'm emotional about it, why am I emotional about it? Because this is bullshit. This is bullshit. If you believe Big Bang theory, and if you try to explain Big Bang theory, a lot of things, scientifically can be explained. You know why? Because that theory is established. That main idea is already established. Other things, other elements, other evidences, for other things can be applied to that. And basically, we talk about millions, years of process. Once the standard is wrongly measured at the beginning, or wrongly set at the beginning, then year can be 1 day, or day can be 1 year. I think, this idea about Big Bang theory, that which sets, the paved way for everything else, it is, as I'm saying, doesn't make sense. I'm just, pleading you with the common sense. Doesn't make any sense. Well, you might ask, where did God came from? Well, I don't have an answer for that. He explained himself, and only thing that I can do is I just believe him. And scientifically, and with all the evidences, with other reasoning, capability that a human can have, I cannot think something comes from nothing. Well, there's something coming from nothing, sometimes. When you're married and you're a husband, you think you didn't do nothing wrong, but your wife's gonna claim whole earth is tumbling down. All my fault. Yeah, that, I'm sorry, my wife. I think there's that, but even that, come on. My wife's feeling about, certain thing going real bad, and I feel like I didn't do nothing wrong at the time. Yeah, but there was something in the background. Something in the history, something that, exists in the background. Nothing, cannot be the source of something. Everything has a source. And if you say, there's good explanation of this Big Bang theory, I'm sorry, you have to philosophically and scientifically study again. You've been brainwashed. A lot of people say faith brainwashes people, and faith is a made-up story. No. As I live longer and longer, and when I see people turning to God, and they're very smart people. A lot of them are very smart people. A lot of scientists actually turn to God after they spend time as non-God people, right? Or even anti-Jesus people. So, I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but I am very feeling sarcastic about, the theories that scientists present to us. Well, and I'm going to touch on the subject, while we're talking about creations and all this, a lot of, carbon dating issue is there. I've been to a laboratory where carbon dating can be measured. If a lavatory right next to it, or elevation of that lavatory is certain level, or there is as I said, lab next to it, does some other test that can affect this carbon dating. It's going to affect millions and millions a year, or 20,000 years, 30,000 years very easily. I've seen that happening right with my eyes. I was there, and I saw the scientists telling me the condition of measuring is very important. But a lot of this carbon dating is done many different places. So scientifically, I want to challenge whoever has a good idea about this, tell me this is the definite measurement of time. I mean, if it is not definite, then you cannot use it. And that's what the scientists have been using. All this, charts, all these things established now, and we believe it as a fact. And we based our findings, new findings, according to that charts, that standard. Those standards will not get you anywhere, because basically, if the standard is tainted, it has a problem, it has a measurement issue, then you're not going to have a proper measurement, and everything can be measured wrong. As I said before, if you have this ruler that is let's say 10 centimeter, but you write it as a 1 meter or 10 meters there instead of a 10 centimeter. So make it easy. Okay, 10 centimeter, but we write it there 10 meters. Then whatever you measure will be 1 meter, 2 meter, 3 meters, up until 10 meters with that ruler. And in science world, basically, popular theory or popular scientists, just dominantly, claim for everything, and that's what happened. So their standard has a flaw, and nobody talks about it. You know why? Because scientists like certain type of pastors, pastors, they do not challenge each other. They really do not, and that's when individual church start to have problems. We have to check and balance each other, so that we are strongly structured in gospel. But when we don't do that, and we don't do that, then this problematic pastors are still there, as pastors, and leading people to the wrong gospel, or even tainted gospel, right? Same thing. Scientists, they never challenge popular theory, because they don't want to, challenge their colleagues. They don't want to challenge their, friends, colleagues, and co-workers, and scholars, because a lot of them actually do not feel they're sufficient enough to challenge that. Well, even for let me touch on the subject, for the black hole. They say black hole is verified fact. I mean, might be. I'm not saying it's not there. I'm saying it's never been found out. It's never been proved. It's never been. The evidence is so weak, but no scientist actually challenges that. Not that many. The only proper scientist that I've seen was like as I remember right, I forgot her name, but she's like 27, 29, around, very young scientist. She, wrote these letters or requests, to many different, telescopes around the earth, to observe this light, bending, at a certain place. And light cannot be bent, so, and she asked all this powerful organization, observatories, and so they actually did it, and that's scientific mindset. She didn't just want to believe the and she challenged this, in a way, very popular, strong theory. But when she did that, light was traveling and then bent it, but it didn't fall into that. It came out, and then, it bent it, and then it traveled, the original path, I think. So that, unless you have those challenges, and Big Bang Theory, the evolutions, all this, black hole, all this never been challenged. Not that much. Nobody wants to be the bad guy to challenge this popular and powerful, science word. I just feel bad about it. And it's, I call it bullshit. And if you say to me that's not faith, and that's the wrong faith, by the way, then I don't know what is not. What, just, I'm sarcastic, and I'm a little bit, angry about the topic, because I'm not angry about it, but I'm very agitated about it, because, this modern world, we have explored many new ideas, and we embraced many new ideas, but, we just embrace only this, and we teach, and we, neglect, another possibility, which is actually absolute truth. And I cannot talk about it because it's related to a religion. No, it's more, it makes more sense. Come on, scientifically, it makes more sense. Nothing comes from nothing. Something comes from something, and I call it somebody, and I call it God. Evolution, there's variations. No fish, no monkey, no whatever came from sand or silica or some type of rock. If you believe that, believe it. And believe me, I'm not going to respect you for that. I'm not going to respect you for that. I'll still debate you respectfully. But I'm sorry. It's not science. And it's not proper reasoning. I want you to recap the things. I think jillions more evidences out there, but we have not explored. Please, scientists, do not look into that ball, a crystal ball, or whatever that, no. Believe in the truth. Have faith, true faith. And people who are sold by that idea, I want you to re-examine everything. With love, I ask of you. I only present two things today, but I'm not super smart. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm gonna be, keep carrying out my endeavor, to find out truth. And that is what you should do, and that is what you should teach the children. Critical mindset. Alright? Okay, let me get back to Deacon Reuben's mode. I love you, and I hope your days, very, very, very blessed, is blessed by God. And I do hope that you search into it so that we could have a more productive future. and more scientific future, and science eventually will catch up with God. Spiritually, we already found God. Scientifically, you guys are here. Catch up. And we will, millions of years later, might say to each other, oh, they believed that, the earth was square. And after that, they made another mistake. They believed that monkey actually became human. How stupid was that? And then, we will ultimately find God. Hallelujah, and have a wonderful day. See ya.